Today I'm going to walk through how I vectorize and color my Procreate drawings. I've been working in Procreate a lot lately because it's easy, feels natural, and I can crank out a quick drawing a lot faster than I could if I were working exclusively in Illustrator. The problem with Procreate is that I have this weird aversion to raster images. I've tried to convince myself that it's okay, a lot of artists work with raster images, and I don't need to work exclusively in vector graphics. The thing is, I've had issues where I really liked a drawing I did and saw potential for prints and other products, but because I used a small canvas size to draw it, I was limited in terms of what I could use it for. Because raster graphics are pixel-based, you can't really enlarge them without them becoming pixelated and losing quality. Vector graphics, on the other hand, can be scaled infinitely without a loss of quality, and it's really easy to make adjustments to both placement of elements as well as color. Now, you can see I've already opened a raster image that I drew in Procreate. It's a simple drawing completely in black and white, and there's a reason for this. Illustrator can vectorize color images, but it's really hit or miss in terms of how well it interprets the boundaries of those colors. Even if you try to limit the colors it uses, it might not interpret your image the way you expect, so you might not get a faithful recreation of your image. So let me show you. Here you can see this image looks pretty straightforward. It's got flat, clearly defined colors, no shading to complicate things, but when you zoom in, you can see that Illustrator, the image trace tool, has added weird colors and weird shapes that I did not intend for it to have, and it makes the image a lot harder to work with. So my workaround to that is to restrict its opportunities to misinterpret colors. So here I've created an image that has only one color, black. And I'm using settings that are interpreting only black and white. So this will ensure my paths are clearly defined and that I have shapes that are easy to work with. I can always add color later. So what I really care about is that the paths make sense and that they are easy to manipulate. So I'm going to start by opening the image trace panel. Anytime you import a raster image into Illustrator, it usually should come up here on your toolbar. If it doesn't, you just go to Window and Image Trace. So I'm going to start here. It's going to tell me it's huge. I know it is, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. So you can see that it does its automatic vectorization, but I actually want a little bit more control over how it vectorizes it. So I'm going to click this image trace panel thing here and actually open it up so I have the settings available to me. Okay, so I'm going to go into advanced settings. I'm going to leave it on black and white because that ensures that it is only looking for black, it is only looking for white, it is not looking for anything in between, no grayscale, no colors, because that's when things get complicated. Okay. I am also going to click ignore white because right now if you drag it off, you can see it has a white background. I don't want a white background. I don't want any white shapes to show up in the middle, floating around, that are going to be a pain in the butt to work with later on. So I'm going to choose ignore white because all I care about are the black parts of this drawing. And you can see that when you do that, it usually ups the threshold a little bit so that if you did have white spots in between, which is, how I'm defining this image, I'm using the negative space to create shapes, those get a little bit lost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this threshold and I'm going to drop it to about 40, 38, whatever. And you can see it's a lot clearer now. So you can toy around with the threshold, give it more, give it less, depending on what you're looking for and what kind of image you're working on. Sometimes I will work with the opposite of this, where I only have the line work. So I actually like to have a higher threshold for that. So it all depends on what you're doing. So if you want a bit more detail, you can increase paths and corners. The thing is, the more points you create, you know, the heavier your image, your file is going to be. So it can be a little bit cumbersome to work with if it's a little bit too detailed. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I think it's clear. I think it's going to be easy to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and expand. So now you can see it is only made up of the black elements. And this is exactly what I want. So I'm going to close out this panel and I'm going to right click and ungroup this. So now it's not all going to move together. Every single path, every single closed path belongs to itself now. And the thing is, when you import a raster image, or when you open a raster image in Illustrator and then you vectorize it, you're not going to have any colors in your swatches. Usually you're going to have this no fill none option. Or maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I'm pretty sure it usually works this way. So I need to add some color palettes. So I'm going to go into my own color palettes here, and I know which ones I want. So I'm just going to click on these, and it's going to add them to my swatches panel. Okay. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to add my color. And from this point on, it's very straightforward, very easy. It's just, you're just coloring. You're selecting your whatever shapes you want and interpreting it however you please. Not much to narrate on here, so I think I might just speed this up. Okay. So the great thing about this is that once you have applied your colors, it's very easy to use the recolor artwork tool. So let's say I wanted to use a different color library, like if I wanted something muted, I could go for textiles, and that's going to limit me to the palette under the textiles option. And it's automatically going to recolor that for me. If I wanted to change the colors myself, if I wanted some specific control, like say this orange is a little bit too red for my taste or a little too desaturated for my taste, I can make my adjustments. Oh, that was not what I was expecting. And, you know, play around the way the recolor artwork tool wants you to, encourages you to. But at this point, unless you wanted to make more modifications to your artwork, give it a little bit more depth maybe by alternating colors here and there. You could just start grouping things by shape. If you wanted like the flower to be easily manipulated together, you can just group that shape. If you wanted it to be grouped by colors, you can always select same fill color, and it's going to select all those, and then you can group those together. I prefer doing it by, I don't know what to call it, just object, I guess. That makes sense. And then of course I just group the whole thing if I'm going to be using this as an asset in other works. Say I wanted to create a pattern using this as an asset. I want it all grouped together so that it's easy to just take the whole thing and put it into whatever work I wanted to. I don't really have much else to add, so that's it. It was a pretty straightforward, easy topic here. So if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. But that's my process for how I vectorize my artwork from Procreate, so I can have an easily manipulatable, is that a word? Manipulatable? Easy to manipulate vector. And now I can resize it as I need. I can reuse this graphic in patterns. I can reuse it to make all kinds of different products. Really, the boundaries don't exist here. That's how much I love vector graphics. I do have another method of coloring vector graphics. As I mentioned before, sometimes I do the opposite of this, where I, instead of just fills, where it gives you this kind of a wood block print kind of effect, or a stamp kind of effect, I just bring in the line work, and then I use the live paint bucket tool over here to start adding color in the negative spaces. I think it's pretty straightforward, so I don't think it really warrants its own video, but then again, I did one for this. So if you would like to see that video, let me know, and I guess I'll make it. Anyway, I hope that helped, hope that cleared things up, and demystified my process a little bit. Have a good one.